So now that we discussed big cities and small cities, we'll have to discuss what is a big city. Is Tucson a big city? Is Tucson a small city? What is Tucson? Eizohi ir gdola. What is considered to be a big city? שקוראים בה את המגילה ב-14 באדר. That you read the Megillah in the 14th of Adar. So it says, כל שיש בה 10 בטלנים. It needs to have 10 people who are sitting and learning Torah all day long. Batlani means they don't work. That the community sponsors them to sit down and learn all day long. So Tucson is almost, they have the kollel over here, but it's only 6. So Tucson is still considered to be a village. I don't care how many people live in Tucson. You can have 10 billion people. If you don't have the 10 batlanim, that's what it is. Phoenix, for example, they have a kollel more than 10 people, or New York, or Miami, or all these places. So that will be considered a big city. Yeah. כל שיש בה 10 בטלנים, every city that has been it 10 people who learn Torah, הבטלים ממלאכתם, the reason we call them בטלנים is because they don't work, ומצויים תמיד בבית הכנסת בשעת התפילה. All day long they sit in shul. You have 10 guys that sit in shul morning to night. Yeah, that's what it means. Learning Torah the entire day.
We don't have it.
Yeah. פחות מכאן, less than this, אם יש בה פחות מ10 בטלנים, if there is less than it than 10 people like this, הרי זה כפר, it is considered to be a village. So a village and a city depends on the Jews, the definition of a city or a village. ומקדימים ליום הכניסה, and then at the time of the temple anyway, the time Jews were in Israel, then they would be able to go back to the day of entrance. באלו, in these what? In these times of reading of the Megillah, בזמני קריאת המגילה, אמרו חכמים, מקדימים בקריאת המגילה, אם חל זמן קריאתה בשבת. So, when it comes to Megillah, like I said before, you always go early to read in the previous day. ולא מאחרים, and you never go later. קריאתה לאחר השבת, to after Shabbat. Why? We're going to learn. It's very strange because in everything else in Judaism, if you don't have an opportunity to do it because Shabbos came in, you always go later. Why in Megillah they decided to go earlier? שנאמר, again, there's a verse in Esther, it says, ולא יעבור, and do not pass the date. In other words, either earlier or on that date. כמו שקבר בארנו המשנה הקודמת, like we already explained. So, only by Megillah, because there's a special verse, it tells you to do it before. In everything else, logic dictates you should do it after. אבל זמן עצי הכהנים, like we learned in the previous Masechet, that there were families who would use to bring wood for the altar. And at the time they used to bring wood, they used to also bring a sacrifice together with the wood. And it says, what happened if that happened on a Shabbos? If their time to bring the things on a Shabbos. So it says they can't bring it because on Shabbos you only bring communal offerings. You don't bring individual offerings. So it says they're not going to, you cannot bring the sacrifice earlier. You bring the sacrifice always later. אבל זמן אצל כהנים, by the time you bring the sacrifice for the כהנים, הזמנים הקבועים למשפחות מסוימות, this is the time that was established for certain families, להביא עצים למערכת האש של המזבח, to bring wood to the altar, הנקראים עצי כהנים והעם, like we learned in the previous מסכת, they're called the wood of the כהנים and the nation, כמו ששנינו במסכת תעניץ, like we learned just like a few weeks ago, וכל אותן המשפחות קבעו יום טוב לעצמם, and those family made it into a holiday, כל אחת ביום שמביאה את העצים, each one in the day they bring the wood, היו מקריבים בקורבת עולת נדבה, נקרא קורבן עצים, they would bring a sacrifice on that day. So if that happens on a Shabbos, you would bring it later, not on a Shabbos. ותשעה באב, so not only when it happens like this, also תשעה באב. What happens if Tisha B'Av happens on the Shabbos, or any other fast happens on the Shabbos? You don't go before, you go after. ותשעה באב הוא הדין שאר התעניות, and this is any other fast, וחגיגה, and also שלמי חגיגה, if the holiday happens to be on the Shabbos, you cannot bring your חגיגה offering, שהיו מביאים בשושת הרגלים, again, you can bring it on the Shabbos, you don't bring it before, you bring it after. והקל, שנאמר, and also הקל, if הקל happens to be on Shabbos, they will build a big place for the king to sit over there to read the thing, but you need to build on Shabbos. So they would not do it on Shabbos, they will do it the next day. מקץ 7 שנים, like it says about Hakel, where all the Jewish people are gathering into Yerushalayim, and the king reads Devarim, the book of Devarim. It says, מקץ 7 שנים במועד שנת השמיטה בחג הסוכות, in the end of the 7 years at the holiday of Sukkot, תקרא את התורה הזאת נגד כל ישראל באוזניהם. The king has to read the Torah for the whole Jewish people. הקל את העם והאנשים, האנשים והטף, you're going to gather all the nation, men, women and children, וזמנו היה קבוע במוצאי יום טוב הראשון של סוכות. And it has the time, as soon as the first Yom Tov of Sukkot went out. מאחרים ולא מקדימים. So you wouldn't do it before, you would do it after, if that's what happens on a Shabbat. אם חל אחד מזמנים אלו בשבת, if one of those times happens to be on Shabbat, דוחים אותו ליום אחר. You push it to the next day. ואין מקדימים אותו לפני השבת, and you don't bring it earlier before the Shabbos. הטעם מבואר בגמרא, the reason is said in the Gemara, לפי שעדיין לא הגיע זמן חיובם. He says you can't do it before. The obligation did not come yet. Yeah, you don't have the obligation to do it yet. What are you doing it from before? So those are when it comes to sacrifices. Yeah? ובתשעה באב, and in 9th of Av, הטעם הוא, so, but in Tisha B'Av, there's no sacrifices to bring. What's the problem? You celebrate a day before. So he says, no. That doesn't make sense to celebrate Tisha B'Av a day before. Why? הטעם מבואר בגמרא, בתשעה באב, הטעם הוא שפורענות אין מקדימים. It says, Tisha B'Av, you're not going to fast. You're not going to do something which is bad beforehand. Maybe Mashiach is going to come and you won't need to do it. Why? You jumping to do the bad things? That's illogical. It's like you're waiting for them. Yeah? It's like you're happy about them. שלמי חגיגה אינם דוחים שבת. When it comes to sacrifices, those do not push away Shabbat. לפי שיש להם תשלומים כל שבעה. Because God said that you can do them after. You have 7 days to bring your holiday sacrifices. So it doesn't, if you have 7 days, there are already allotted times from them. What are you going to do it in an unallotted time that you decided? There is an allotted time. It says if it's not the first day, do it all the 7 days you have. So do it in those 7 days. ומצוות הקל נדחית מפני השבת. And הקל is pushed because of Shabbat. לפי שחייבים כל העם לבוא ולהביא את אפם, because the entire nation needs to bring their children, ובשבת אי אפשר להביאו. And in Shabbat you cannot carry the babies, שאסור לשאתו ברשות הרבים, you cannot allow to carry them in a public domain. ירושלמי מבואר הטעם, ירושלמי gives the reason I gave you before, לפי שהיו עושים למלך בימה של עץ בעזרה, because they used to make a big a place, a stage for the king, ואי אפשר לעשותה בשבת, and you couldn't build the stage on Shabbos. ומערב יוב טוב, אין יכולים לעשות אותה. So he says, what's the problem? You know it's coming up. Build it on a Thursday, build it on a Friday. So he says, no, that you can't do. Why? אי אפשר לעשותה שלא יהיה דוחק בעזרה, because it's a busy time. The Kohanim need the places, the people need places to walk around, and you making a big stage over there. No, that's not the way to do it. שלא לצורך היום, because that's not for necessity for those 2 days. It's going to stand there and impede the entire nation. You can't do that. הרמב"ם כותב טעם אחר, the Rambam writes another reason, מפני תקיעת החוצצרות והתחינות שאינם דוחים את השבת. He says it's because when the king used to give a speech, it's a whole ceremony. And the whole ceremony requires trumpets and things for the king, not for the holiday. That you cannot do. So he said, because it's Shabbat, you cannot do it, and you don't want just the king to come, you want him to be with full glory, so that's why it pushes away. Okay. So we're going to continue. אף על פי שאמרו מקדימים ולא מאחרים, even though in all these places we said that you go early and you don't go late, בקריאת המגילה, you read the Megillah on an earlier date, but the 14th and the 15th still remain holy. What does it mean? בקריאת המגילה, מותרים בהספד ופותענית. And the day you read the Megillah is not holy. Let me explain. For example, Purim is a happy holiday. What does it mean, a happy holiday? It's a holiday where you're not allowed to fast. You're not allowed to mourn. Yeah? You're not allowed to have extra things of mourning. So if somebody wants to fast on Purim, he's not allowed to. Right? So let's say the 14th of Adar happens.
You mean
that's the day before. Yudaled Tetvav. Yeah. Tzom Esther is Yud Gimel. Yeah. So if somebody, for example, let's say you're a big city, and this is on a Tuesday, right? It's on a Tuesday. And the villagers, we're in Tucson, we're a village, so we're going to read the Megillah on a Monday. Yeah? We'll be reading on a Monday. On that Monday, you will be allowed to fast. Forget Tani Sister. Let's say there was no Tani Sister. Yeah? On this Monday, we're allowed to fast because the Monday is not a holiday, it's not Purim. Even though we read the Megillah, the status of the holiness doesn't go to the previous day. Yud Gimel or Yud Bet, if it's on a Wednesday or a Tuesday, depends. Yeah? So it doesn't transfer the holiness, it just transfers the reading. So in other words, on a Monday we'll be allowed to fast. Okay? ביומים שהקדימו לקרות בהם. And another thing, ומתנות לעניים. And also, what about gifts to the poor? There's a gift to the poor and a feast that also requires to be done on Purim. The question is it just a Kriyas Megillah that's done the previous day? Gifts to the poor can also be done on the previous day. The feast, can that also be done on the previous day? So let's discuss. ומתנות לעניים, what about gifts to the poor? כלומר, which means, שאם נתנו בימים אלו מתנות לאביונים, if you gave gifts to the poor on the Monday, that's not the 14th, יצאו ידי חובתם. The Rambam says, even though that's not the day, it's okay, you did your obligation. but משלוח מנות, when it comes to sending food parcels to your friend, that you didn't do the obligation. Yeah? The food parcels has to be on the day, 14th or 15th. It can never be before. ברם משלוח מנות אינו נהוג אלא בזמן סעודה. When do we send gifts? We send the gifts for the feast, because the gifts are for the feast. That's the purpose. The gifts are for the feast. וסעודת פורים צריכים לעשותה בזמנה. And the feast always needs to be on that holy day, 14th and 15th. When the rabbis gave you permission to do it earlier, they only gave you permission for the reading of the Megillah and for the gifts to the poor. They didn't give you permission for the feast. The feast has to be done on that proper day. ויש מפרשים, there are those who says, ומתנות לאביונים, and gifts to the poor, שפטורים מליתן מתנות בימים שהקדימו לקרוא בהם. It says, ומתנות לאביונים, they learn it from that words that they don't have to give gifts to the poor if the day is earlier. In other words, they can do it later. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said, when is all this taking place? We already covered it. Rabbi Yehuda says, when do we give permission to the villagers to come back a day to an earlier days? It says, Makom shenichnasim b'shni v'chamishi. Obviously, it's only in a place where the people anyway go to the big city. If you have, even in the day, in the time of the Beit HaMikdash, yeah? If the villagers, those people did not go to the big cities, obviously you don't give them permission to read on a Monday and a Thursday. So it has nothing to do. Let's say they are a village and everything is correct, but they don't happen to have a market day in the big city, forget about it. We still don't give them permission. Makom shenichnasim b'shni v'chamishi. It's only in the place that they have the custom to come into the big city on a Monday and a Thursday. שמתכנסים בהם לא בעיירות, כמו שבאנו, משנה א', that they come into the big cities anyway. ולפי הרמב"ם, שמתקבצים בימים אלו בבתי כנסיות. And according to the Rambam, that they come into the big cities because they want to read the Torah. אבל במקום שאין נכנסים, לא בשני ולא חמישי, but in a place they don't come anyway, not on Monday, not on Thursday, even in the time of the temple, even in Israel. אין קוראים אותו אלא בזמנה, then we only read it in its own allotted time, in the 14th, ב-14 באדר.
So all this trick was to make the villages a little bit easier in a way, because they come anyway, and they say, oh, if you come anyway, we'll read the Megillah, so you don't have to come tomorrow too, or something.
There's a whole debate in the Gemara. The Gemara says, who is it for? So some say it's for the villagers. Some say it's not for the villagers.
For the rabbis not to read it twice.
No, not for the rabbis either. It's for the people of the city. Because if the villagers know, for example, if the villagers know that Purim is on a Friday, right? And they know that the market day is usually on a Thursday, yeah? They're not going to come on a Thursday. They're going to come on a Friday because anyway they know they need to be in the city on Friday. And then the people of the city won't have time to prepare their meals. They wouldn't have food. So there's a whole debate. Who is the decree for? Is the decree for the villagers or for the city? Yeah, the whole debate, the Gemara discusses it.